keynote speaker, a patriot who's been part of our community more than 25 years, Mr. Jared Morgan. Jared attended Santa Monica High School before enlisting in the United States Marine Corps in 2001, prior to the 9/11 terrorist attacks that year. He served 2 tours overseas. The first time he was stationed in Kuwait during the 2003 US-led invasion of Iraq. The second time, he was stationed in Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Upon returning home and subsequently being honorably discharged from the military, Jared attended Santa Monica College, where he studied journalism and served as the Corsair's editor-in-chief before transferring to California State University Northridge. Jared currently lives in Santa Monica with his wife and 2 children. He is presently the adjutant, I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly, for Santa Monica Post 123 of the American Legion. And today, he graces our stage to offer his insights on the importance of this day. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Jared Morgan.
Memorial Day is rooted in our memories. We honor our fallen. We honor the sacrifice of their lives so that we may be free. We have come together in this place amongst the green and the stone of Woodlawn Cemetery as free men and women. We come today to remember. So let us remember Army Private Joe Gandera, who served in World War II. Gandera was born in Santa Monica and was working as an aircraft assembler when he found himself drafted into the Army in February 1943. He represented the 61% of service members drafted during World War II. Gandera fought for his life and lost less than a year and a half later in Amfreville, France, on June 9th, 1944. Only 3 days after the Allied forces had stormed the beaches of Normandy. Gandera was only 19 years old on D-Day when he dropped in from the sky with the 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment to the uncertain shores of France, far from his home in Santa Monica. 3 days later, his detachment came under heavy fire from German troops. The hail of bullets persisted, keeping the Americans pinned to the ground for 4 hours. Gandera may not have enlisted in the Army of his own free will, but that day he voluntarily left the temporary safety of his unit's position to advance, firing his machine gun from his hip, charging upon the enemy. He did so by himself, in that moment, not focused on getting home, probably with little concern for his own safety, just thinking of the men he served with and whom he had forged a close bond. In this selfless act, Gandera took down 3 hostile machine guns, offering his unit a tactical advantage. He did this for his brothers, he did this for the mission, and he was killed for it. For his gallantry, Gandera was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor in March 2014 by President Barack Obama. Gandera has returned and lies at rest here in Santa Monica. He's only one short story in a long book of stories. The American Legion has always stood for pride in our nation's fallen heroes. A foundation for those America still sends to the fight for freedom in every corner of the world. The preamble of the Constitution of the American Legion calls on us to preserve the memories and incidents in our associations in the Great Wars. We owe our heroes no less. On June 6th, the world will observe the 75th anniversary of the Normandy invasion. American Legion National Commander Brett Rystad will lead a delegation to the sandy shores of France, paying respects to the thousands of Allied heroes who gave their lives to liberate a continent. In all, more than 6,000 American troops were killed during D-Day operations. More than 400,000 during World War II were killed in fighting. than 54,000 Americans died. Then Vietnam, 90,000. The Persian Gulf, 1,500. The War on Terror, roughly 7,000. These stories, they are of all Americans, of all races, all positions in life, each with their own hometowns. The services turn men and women from every conceivable background into a brotherhood. Many of our troops and veterans alike consider the time they served and the people they served with bound irrevocably in their shared experience and sacrifice. Regardless of background, regardless of race, regardless of gender, their sacrifice remains the same. When one witnesses the reality of heroes dying, it's easy to mistake their mission as failed. Private Andy Rooney, who would later achieve fame as a 60 Minutes commentator, was a correspondent for the Stars and Stripes newspaper. He interviewed a number of D-Day veterans. Quote, "All they saw was dead friends," Rooney remembered. Guys drowning in the water and dead people all around them. And back in London headquarters, they were calling it a great victory, a great success. It didn't look like a success to the guys who were fighting it, but it turned out it was in fact a success. And the guys who were up close and saw it firsthand were wrong. The people who had the grand view of it were right, end quote. We continue to lose heroes every day in places like Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and in military training accidents and missions around the world. Some were only teenagers, and many were just in their 20s. Regardless of their age, to their families, they are forever young, healthy, and strong. More than 1 million American service members have died in wars that our nation has been involved in since the inception of our country, when the first colonial soldiers took up arms in 1775. Many of them died protecting each other, but also protecting the rest of us, so that we could keep the things that we love the most: faith, country, and family. By remaining true to these principles, we honor their sacrifice. Observances like this are happening in communities across America. In fact, many of our nation's heroes are being honored at the National Cemetery just east of here. And there are many ways to remember our fallen heroes. We speak their names, we lay down flowers, we fly our flag, we tell their stories. But remembering our fallen once a year is not enough. The spouses, parents, brothers, sisters, and children, they remember every day. Imagine hearing for the first time the words, "We regret to inform you." Joanne Steen, a behavioral health counselor and Gold Star widow, recently wrote a book with the same title, "We Regret to Inform You." To Gold Star parents, she writes, "The reality that your child is dead comes in doses. Reality doesn't have sensitivity or good manners, and you may be confronted with a harsh dose when you least expect it. Likewise, reality seems to operate on its own schedule." End quote. Whether they fought in the Pacific, the Philippines, France, Germany, Korea, the jungles of Vietnam, the deserts and mountains of the Middle East, their stories of heroism and sacrifice continue to reverberate across the fabric of our history. When we are silent, we can hear their voices and their bravery ring like bells across this land. Of the approximately 550 Santa Monica veterans interred here at Woodlawn Cemetery, 134 of them, as mentioned earlier, have died during our nation's wars and conflicts. Their names, again, inscribed on the commemorative wall here. On behalf of those who have fallen, I want to thank you for coming to honor them. In turn, I want us all to give thanks to those still in harm's way. When we depart today, let us go in the peace that our warriors' sacrifice has given us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared, for your insights and your words of inspiration. It's very powerful. While the day is meant to honor and celebrate our fallen heroes, as we gather here today, we also think it's important to acknowledge the heroes in our presence. At this point, we'd like to acknowledge the veterans and active duty servicemen and women in our audience. So when you hear your branch of the military, would you be so kind to rise? And let's all give each group our heartfelt applause and appreciation for their service to our country. Service that ensures the freedom we experience today. Army, thank you. Navy, Air Force, Marines, and the Coast Guard. Thank you all for your service. For 150 years, Americans have taken the last Monday in May to remember those who have died in service to our country. Each Memorial Day, the U.S. flag flies at half-staff for the first half of the day, and then is raised to full height at noon. Now this symbolizes an honoring of those who sacrificed their lives in the first part of the day, while the second part of the day honors those who are still with us. Now no one knows the exact date this tradition began, but according to the National Flag Foundation, an Army Regulations book from 1906 carries instructions for this procedure. So it predates the 20th century. Now to continue the tradition here in Santa Monica in the 21st century, we welcome back the Santa Monica Police Department Explorers, accompanied by Thomas Allen. Please stand for the raising of the flag.